Hello, everyone. Hope you're doing well. First of all, thank you so much for showering so much love to our past lives and raincoat video. Yes, for the views. Thank you for the views. But more than that, thank you so much for the comments that you've given on the video. I think like feedback is something that we have been craving for so long. So it feels great that you love the videos. It's great that you love the movies as well. So thank you so much again. Uh, we always we always strive to recommend you stuff that is not just for experience. It's also movies that make you feel a certain way. And Raincoat and Past Lives, for some reason, are ironically very similar to each other. Uh, Concept about soulmates not ending up with each other, but also very different from each other if you think about it, because Raincoat, if you think at one point, uh, is about soulmates who are hiding so much from each other. And then there's past lives. They are soulmates, but they express their feelings in various ways. So, same, but also the movies are very different from each other. But yeah, if you're talking about movies that we recommend on the channel, they are not just stuff that blow you away in a certain way, but it's also something which make you feel a certain way. And Past Lives and Raincoat is uh, part of that genre. And today's recommendation is also uh, a movie that makes you feel a certain way, makes you feel 100 different things if you invest in it. And I'm using the word invest because of two reasons, two specific reasons. The first reason is that it's the longest movie that I've seen in my whole life. I think it clocks in at about 6 hours or so. It's basically a mini series if you think about it. And the second reason why I'm using the word invest is because unlike uh, the usual longer movies, when I'm talking about longer, I mean like movies that are over 3.5, 4 hours. The Lord of the Rings and Lawrence of Arabia, those epics. So longer movies, like they tend to be uh, these big, massive sagas of epic proportions. They usually are like that with characters, with larger than life characters. This one uh, is not in that genre. It's in fact it's the complete opposite of it. It's a very personal story about these two characters, these two brothers, and their life basically. It's just us watching them go from being teenagers. We The movie is panning over a course of, I think, like 5 decades or so. It starts from the early 60s and ends at uh, somewhere around early 2000 or something. So it's just us tracking these characters as they are navigating through life. So it's just that. It's just normal things happening to them. Obviously, extraordinary things as well, because when we're talking about life, obviously, extraordinary things happen. I'm not just talking about bad things, but even good things, right? Like, I'm talking about things that change the way you think, change the way you approach life, uh, change the way you think about life in a certain way, which make you things that make you a bit more mature, things that make you choose a certain career or anything. Like there are these career defining moments that come in our life, and Best of Lives also has these characters who go through life changing moments in life, and it's just us observing them in these 6 hours. So if you're worried about the runtime, let me just tell you first of all, it's you can watch it however you want. It's like I said, it's like a mini series. So no matter where you drop, no matter where you pick up, it's fine. You can watch it whichever way you want. The movie does not judge you by the way you select to watch the movie. You can watch it in 6 parts, an hour each. or you can watch it in two parts, 3 hours each. That's how I saw it. And the movie that we're going to talk about today, uh, scrumptious recommendation of the week, is called this very little, very small movie called The Best of Youth. It is a 2003 Italian language movie. It came out, uh, when it came out, it had somewhat like competed in that year's Cannes Film Festival or something like that. But it's not talked about much, and it astonishes me that a movie so beautiful is so underrated, underwatched, and I really don't get why. Because even though the movie is 6 hours long, I never, trust me, guys, I never felt the time. So the basic plot of Best of Youth, I don't think the plot matters here because it's just regular things happening to them, right? Except for one big spoiler that I'll be talking about sometime at the end of the video or something. I'll warn you that something like a really massive thing happens. Uh, Not something, it's something that you should experience on your own. Other than that, I don't think there's any spoilery stuff. It's just, like I said, these two characters just growing old, right from teenagers to maybe like 60s or something like that, right? So, uh, what this movie does is that we meet them first when they're teenagers, and we see them be very naive and all. But every 40-45 minutes, and it's not that stringent, but every 40-45 minutes, there's a time leap that happens. We start somewhere around 1966 or something, and then I think 40-50 minutes later, we do a time jump. Like, Nicola is now pursuing medicine, and Matteo has joined the military or something like that. Uh, Nicola has become a revolutionary. He's not that politically active, but the girl that he likes is very much a rebel, a revolutionary. So, because he wants to impress her, he also starts becoming a revolutionary of that sort. So, the best thing that I love, the best thing about this movie is that when the time leap happens and when these characters are just going on about life, just living life, you start thinking about what all things they've gone through in the past, in the leap that has happened, in the past, whatever years that have gone by. And that happens again because you have lived with these characters for that much time. You have felt so much about these characters, of whatever things that have happened to them in the past and whatever that they are now. You tend to think, you start thinking about what made them this way. And that's the beauty of Best of Youth. This is the reason why I never felt the runtime in this movie. I decided when I started watching the movie, I decided, it's a 6 hour movie. I am not, I'll watch it like maybe like 40 minutes or an hour or so. But I never could switch off the television because I was so much into their life. It feels, I don't want to use this word, but it feels sort of intrusive to just seeing them living their life. It feels very voyeuristic, like they're just doing normal things, driving the car, talking to their loved ones, being so intimate with their loved ones, so close to each other, fighting. Everything that we do in our life, they are doing. It feels very intrusive just to notice them going about their life. And that's the beauty of Best of Youth. You will not be able to think about anything other than whatever that the movie shown. And oh my god, Italy is beautiful. I don't think I've seen a bunch of Italian movies. It's very rarely has an Italian movie captured the landscape, or any movie has captured the Italian landscape as much as this movie is. I'm going to be talking about the environment and whatever the social climate that the movie has shown us in some time. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to be talking a lot about the plot. I'll be breaking it down to three main situations that happen in this movie. And the only reason why I'm talking about these three situations is because it emphasizes why this movie is worth watching. I'll tell you again, do not do not miss this movie because of the runtime, because it may be intimidating for you, but just give it a try. Just give it a try, and I guarantee you will come out feeling just emotionally enriched in a lot of ways. So the three main situations that I'm going to talk about, uh, the first two you can sit through, but the last one will be spoilers, will be a major spoiler. So for that, I would recommend you to watch the movie first and then come back. Okay. So the first one is the first main thing that we see these two brothers doing, Matteo and Nicola. I don't know who's the older one. I think Nicola's the older one. I'm not really sure about it. Uh, the best thing, one thing that I loved about this movie is their relationship. They have a very normal sibling relationship, and I think that is because they have they have grown up in a very healthy environment where the parents are very loving. Everything, like right from their love lives to the political climate of the country at that point, everything, they can talk about anything. They can have healthy debates, and it is a very healthy environment as such. And that's the reason why even Nicola and Matteo, they share a very normal sibling relationship. So the first major thing that happens in their life, Nicola and Matteo's life, is that they meet a girl who's in an asylum. Either Nicola or Matteo, both of them, they're studying medicine. Uh, Through that, I think Matteo is the one who meets her. So the first time when we see, I forget her name, it's Georgia. Georgia, her name. So when we first see Georgia, uh, uh, she is a very timid girl. She doesn't talk to a lot of people. I'm not sure about what her mental condition is at that point, but she is kept in an asylum, and Matteo finds out that something wrong has been happening uh, to Georgia. Something, the doctors are doing something terrible to her. I think uh, they are doing experiments on her. So basically, they're treating her as a lab rat. So what they do is they decide to steal her. So they steal her, and they decide to take her to her father's place, somewhere in the village. And what follows are some beautiful scenes in the movie. The movie becomes, for a certain amount of time, the movie becomes a road movie where they want Georgia to reach her father's place. So they spend some really amazing moments with each other. You get to see not just the bonding that the brothers have, but also get to see how protective they are about Georgia. Like Georgia also see she they care for her so much that she understands what love is for the first time. Like her father never cared for her, right? Like that is why he never came to visit her. He completely abandoned her. We don't know exactly why they are taking back to her father. Maybe they think that the father doesn't know about all this or something like that. But we also know that this is the first time Georgia is feeling love in her life. She gets to see how much they care for her, how protective they are of her. This is the purest form of love that she has ever witnessed, and they are also like that. It's I can't tell you how beautiful those scenes are, and this is how the best of you starts. Like the first few minutes or so, I think 15 minutes later, this thing happens where Georgia, where they meet Georgia. I don't want to say what happens when they meet the father. That is something that you can witness it on your own. But what I wanted to say about this scene, what I loved about this scene is that This is the first major thing that happens in their life where they think about something and they do it on instinct. And this is something that they lack as they get older. This is how Best of Youth starts. This is how we see how people are like, how teenagers react to things. They think that something is right or wrong, and that's how they react to those situations. They don't think about the consequences of anything. They know that once they steal Georgia from the hospital, obviously the cops are going to come after them. But they don't think about all this. They only know that something wrong is happening to them, something wrong is happening to her, and she needs to be rescued, and that's what they're going to do. This is the first time when we see uh, them taking a stand, maybe the first and last time that we see them being so light and dark about something, being so instinctive about something. That's the first thing that I want to talk about. It is such a fantastic sequence. It just gets you inside the movie. You get to understand, oh, now this is what Best of Youth is like. It expects me to be invested in these characters, and you get to see, you get to feel that, now I'm watching this movie and I'm totally comfortable in this world, and now you're free to take me wherever you want. And that's what the movie does. After the first few sequences, after the Georgia sequence, uh, they grow old. There's a time leap that happens, and just serious things in life get to them. Like I said, uh, Nicola pursues medicine. He meets a girl. Matteo, on the other hand, he enrolls in the army and later on becomes a police or so. So this is where they actually part ways. I think the Georgia sequence is the only part, like, that's the only part where we get to see them spending so much time with each other, the two brothers. After that, they actually part ways. They have their own life. Obviously, Nicola is married and he even has a little girl. So he gets consumed by that world. Matteo, on the other hand, I'll get to the Matteo part a bit later. But overall, he enrolls himself in the army and he cares more about what he does for his country. Uh, and that's why later on he also enrolls in the police department. He also becomes a cop, I think a detective or something like that. But this is what the first major conflict, I think, comes between him and Nicola. Is that Nicola is this, he becomes a revolutionary, although he doesn't care much about it. He only does it for the girl that he has a fascination for. But this, but this is the first conflict that they have, the two brothers, where Matteo is doing something for the government, and this guy is opposing him. Okay, so the second part that I want to talk about is this part where the movie talks a lot about the social landscape of these 5 decades. I heard about this movie in one of Anurag Kashyap's interviews, where he talked about Best of Youth, how it inspired Gangs of Wasseypur, the concept of Gangs of Wasseypur. About, if you haven't seen Gangs of Wasseypur, please watch it. It's also a story about, it's also a gangster saga panning over a course of 5 decades. It's also a long movie, I think around 5.5 hours, something. Uh, so Anurag Kashyap mentioned in an interview that the concept of a story, someone's story told through a course of a long time, and through that, he also saw that Best of You talks about the political landscape, the political environment in these 4 or 5 decades or so. So Best of You does that, and that's what even Gangs of Wasseypur also does. Uh, Not only is it a story of a character, the main character whose name is Faisal Khan. Not only is the movie a story of Faisal Khan, It is also talking about the climate of Wasipur, again, over a course of 50 years or so. So, even Best of You does this in such a good way. Through these characters, we get to see what was going on in Italy at that point, like from the 60s to the 90s or something like that. It does it so well. In fact, the title of the movie, The Best of Youth, is actually a reference to this short story or poem collection or something of that sort, which talked about the youth during the 60s and the 70s, the younger generation being resistant to the traditional values of the government. Uh, I don't think the movie takes a stand on what is right, what is wrong. Like the main conflict itself should tell us about that, because the two brothers start having conflicting ideologies. Like Matteo is a cop now, and he's obviously pro government. But then there's Nicola, who is who has sort of become a revolutionary because of his girlfriend. But the reason why the movie does not take a stand on one single thing is because of a certain thing that I'll be getting in some time. But the main thing that you find out about the sequence is how much distance it creates between the two brothers. Like Matteo cannot approach Nicola in certain ways. Like they are amicable, they are talking to each other in certain ways. They can still go to each other and stuff like that. But there is a certain distance that has come between him and Nicola. Nicola is also consumed by his life, not just not just the revolutionary work, but also his wife and the girl that he has. So because of that, and Mateo's not been married yet. So because of that, because of their lives being completely different from each other, that is also the reason why the connection slightly falters in this phase. And that's been shown really well in these sequences. Coming to the political environment part, I don't think the movie takes a stand between what is right and what is wrong. I don't think at all that it makes things preachy in any way. But I think the one thing that the movie tries to tell us about is the difference between revolution and fanaticism. And this is what changes Nicola back to what he originally believed, and that is to help people through his work. What happens is I think, somewhere midway around the first half of the movie, Nicola notices that his wife is having some meetings at their place, which tend to be a bit more violent than the usual meetings that she has. And then he notices that it's actually somewhat bordering terrorism as well. He goes inside in one of those meetings. He goes past that meeting room and he sees in the other room that his daughter, who's around 2 or 3 at that point, she is completely abandoned. Like nobody is taking care of her. His wife is not paying attention to her. And this is the time where he decides that he'll be moving out. He'll be leaving his wife, and he takes his daughter with him. Again, like the first part of the plot that I explained with Georgia, here he the decisions that he has to make is much more complicated, uh, much more complicated for him. At first, he chose his wife over Mateo, and here he chooses his daughter over his wife. And his wife is not something, again, not something. She is a gray character. It's not so easy when we see him making this decision. Uh, he could have tried to change her. He could have tried to convince her in a certain way. Uh, he also has those conflicts inside him, but at the end, he chooses this to take his daughter away, to be separated from his wife. And at that point, I think he's only thinking about his daughter. That's why he makes that decision. Uh, I think why it's complicated is because his wife is also having conflicts where She is certain about her cause, but she also wants to take care of her daughter. And he notices at this point, when this particular meeting happens, he notices that she cares about her cause way more than being a mother. And I think that's the reason why he makes the decision. And he gets out, he starts a hospital, starts helping people, out of which one of them is also Georgia. He meets Georgia again, and yeah, they again start having a certain. He's happy with whatever that he does because uh, he loves helping people. He understands what he was missing this whole time when he was thinking about the revolution part of it, and now he understands that doing this is helping people more than anything that he has done before. And that was the second part of it. The third one is the spoiler part. I would recommend you to watch the movie first because it's a major spoiler. like uh, like I said, it's a life changing moment for the characters in this movie. So go watch the movie and then come back and watch this part, which is by far my favorite part of the movie. All right, here's what happens. So when Nicola opens this hospital of his, he tries to mend things with Matteo. He realizes that he was right when he spoke about helping people. But for some reason, Matteo is not ready for that. He is in a completely different headspace. Okay, now let's go to Matteo. He has been lonely all this while. Like Nicola is someone that he was so close to. He abandons him, right? Like they haven't been talking as much as they did. So that happens. He is staying away from his family. Uh, Again, he has a very supportive family. We've seen Italian families in movies, right? Like we've seen The Godfather and we've seen Sopranos and all those. Like we see how tight they are, how uh, supportive they are of each other. In the same way, Mateo's family is also very supportive. Uh, the only thing is that Mateo is not living with them anymore. He is living in a separate city. He's not been around, or I think he stays in the same city but does not meet them quite often. Certain things have happened that have changed the dynamic that he shares with them. He even dates a girl that he really likes, but again, I don't know. Depression works in mysterious ways, right? Like you can be around a lot of people that you feel close to, but you can still feel lonely. Uh, that's the same thing that happens with Mateo. The girl that he's dating, she even tries to uh, tell him about it. She knows that he's trying to push her away, and she tells him about it. But again, he's not in that headspace anymore. He just, I think, okay, this is what I think why he's trying to go away from her is because he knows what happened with Nicola. Like Nicola he's been closest in his family. Nicola has been the closest to him. That is why he shares uh, the thing about Georgia that happens. The first person that he tells it to is Nicola. Nicola has been his support system, was his support system before, uh, and he went away. He he chose someone else over him. That is how he saw that thing, and that's why he doesn't let anyone else come come close to him anymore, and that's why he's pushing her away now. So that happens. She goes away. He doesn't want to talk to her anymore, and he attends his family's New Year's Eve. Now, this New Year's Eve is something that he's not attended with his family for quite a few years now. He's been away every single time. So when he arrives at that party, he he sees everyone having fun and all, and he still feels lonely. He still feels out of place. They have discussions that he's not familiar with. in some ways. Like he doesn't feel included in whatever ways. Like I don't know. Like I don't want to justify anything, but it's something that he feels in that moment. So he's trying to leave, and Nicola sees that he's leaving. So he stops him. He says, like, dude, it's not New Year's yet. Like, why are you leaving? And he's like, no, no. He lies to him. He's like, no, some case came up. And Nicola knows at that point, like, something is up with him. But from Nicola's perspective, he has tried a lot to fix things between them and it hasn't worked. So he sort of gives up at that moment. And Mateo goes home in his apartment, in his small apartment, and he tries to, again, it's New Year's Eve, everyone is celebrating outside, and he's feeling lonely again. He tries to call the girl that he's dating, and the girl at this point is she's mad at him, and that's why she decides to make his call go to the answering machine. So he's not able to talk to her. So she's basically avoiding him. So what follows is we see a shot. This is a 3 minute shot or something. Like it's a still shot looking towards the balcony, and there's fireworks that we see outside. And suddenly, I think in a minute or so, Mateo comes in that frame and he jumps out of it, just like that. And it's one of the most shocking things that I've seen. It's not even like anywhere near the end of the movie. This happens around the 4 hour mark or so. And it just tells you how your mind works. Like, unless and until you don't know how your brain would work, your brain would tell you 100 different things that may not be true at that point. And you get to see that condition happen. You get to see that condition happening to Mateo at that point. He is feeling nothing more than lonely. It's not like people close to him haven't tried uh, coming close to him, but his brain hasn't just his brain his brain has always tried to block these things. This is one of the hardest scenes in the movie. I have cried so many times, like especially the following scenes where we see Nicola dealing with it, his mom just coming out of the building that he jumped from, and she looks upstairs to the balcony where he's jumped from, and she just breaks down. And with her, Nicola and his sister also break down. And these are some of the toughest scenes in the movie. Anyways, like I sobbed like crazy in these scenes. Cut to a few years later, I think 15 years or so, the girl that Mateo was dating, she reaches out to Nicola, and we find out that Mateo has a son who looks very similar. I don't know how they did that, but he looks very similar to Mateo. Uh, she tells him that Mateo has a kid, and Nicola goes and meets him with Mateo's mother. And they have again a very, very sweet time. Again, this is the time, a lot of time has passed. Nicola has sort of uh, dealt with this loss of his. He even tells it to Georgia, and I don't want to tell you about those scenes. Like that is something that you can experience on your own. Uh, those scenes are written well, directed so well. It's something that you have to see it to believe. I don't know how to explain those scenes, how great those scenes are. But yeah, Nicola has sort of dealt with Mateo's loss, and this is where he again finds out a few more things about him through the girl that he was dating. So Mateo, when he was dating this girl, he did not use his name. He actually introduces himself as Nicola. So it's again something of an idea of distancing from other people. That is something that Mateo might be having at that point. I don't know. What happens is through this time, when Nicola is spending so much time with Mateo's then girlfriend, and his son, Nicola grows a lot closer to Mateo's girlfriend. And I think the common thing that they have between them is how much they knew Mateo. They both could have avoided that thing. They both could have done something that night that could have saved Mateo's life. Mateo would have been amongst them. So that guilt is something that they have between them. That is something which is common between them. And that is what makes them bond with each other. So there's this beautiful scene. There's a beautiful scene where they are walking down some farm or something, and you can see that tension between them. Like they want to kiss. They both like each other a lot, and they want to kiss. And we see Mateo appear behind them, and he places his shoulder. We see him place his shoulder behind both of them. It's like some blessing that he has given to Nicola and the girl, and that's when they kiss. It's such a beautiful, beautiful scene. Uh, Goosebumps. I get goosebumps when I see that scene. It's it's not something that I can actually explain to you guys. It's again something that you have to experience to know how beautiful those scenes are. You sob, you cry so much in these scenes. Uh, it's directed so well, it's written so well that again, it's a kind of movie that you relate so much to these characters. You may not agree with them a lot of times, but you understand what these guys have gone through. You understand what life has given them to be making these decisions. Lot more things happen. Like there's a whole separate plot between Nicola and his wife after they get separated. A lot of things happen there. This again, the Mateos thing is my favorite thing about the movie is how it comes full circle, how it affects people's lives, Nicola's life, no, the sister's life, Nicola's sister's life, a lot of things. And that's how life is. It's something that cannot be compressed in 6 hours, but you still relate to these characters. You still feel for them again so much that when it's over, you don't want it to get over. Like imagine like a 6 hour movie, and you still don't want the movie to end. You still don't want to say goodbye to these characters. Nicola is what a fantastic actor. I'm going to put his name up here. He has done a fabulous job. Like before Mateo dies, uh, scenes are split between the two, and it's almost like after the thing happens, Nicola has so much more to do, way more than what we saw him do before. And the acting has been handled really well. Again, the last thing that I want to tell you: do not do not give up this movie just because of the runtime. Watch it in your own pace. Why do you need episodes to tell you when to start and stop? Decide on your own, and trust me, you will not regret. If you invest in this movie at least for half an hour or so, you will complete this movie. You will want to complete this movie. You will want to see where things go for Nicola and Matteo and the other characters. Like there are a bunch of things about Matteo that I haven't talked about. So please watch, and also watch a lot of other videos that we have uploaded over the past one and a half year or so. There's so many other recommendations after you complete the 6 hour marathon, which is best of youth. Please make sure you watch our other videos as well. We have got a great recommendation coming for you next week. It's actually the first $1 billion movie that we've talked about. First movie that we've talked about in the channel to have crossed $1 billion. So certainly not underrated, but certainly worth watching. So watch out for this space. Till then, I'm Sanket. You're watching Crunches. Bye bye.